A classified Soviet satellite scanning the Himalayas in the 1970s detected biological heat signatures radiating from completely empty, frozen caves at 20,000 feet. When covert operatives investigated, they did not find military outposts, but rather solitary figures surviving impossible temperatures using biological mechanisms that completely defy modern human science. We are about to crack open the sealed vaults of the most isolated mountains on Earth to expose impossible biology, lethal underground labyrinths, and terrifying psychological realms kept hidden for centuries. Join us, and let's discover the hidden anomalies of Tibetan monks. Let's go.
Number 13. Mount Kailash. Deep in the Trans-Himalaya lies a monolithic pyramid of black rock that no human being has ever successfully climbed. This is Mount Kailash, an entity considered so dangerously sacred that the Chinese government strictly prohibits any mountaineering expeditions from touching its slopes. But the true mystery is not the political ban. It is the terrifying biological anomalies reported by those who merely walk near its base. Trekkers and monks who enter the immediate magnetic perimeter of the mountain experience violently accelerated aging. Hair and fingernails grow at an impossible rate, equivalent to 2 weeks of cellular growth compressed into just 12 hours. Think of the mountain as a massive, naturally occurring microwave that warps the localized flow of time instead of just heating food. Soviet scientists who investigated the site theorized that Kailash is not a natural geological formation at all, but a colossal, ancient energy conductor perfectly aligned with global magnetic nodes. Monks guard the inner approaches to this peak, fully aware that entering the wrong energetic slipstream can cause instant psychological collapse. If a simple mountain can literally fast-forward human biology, what exactly is buried underneath its impenetrable layers of black ice and snow?
Number 12. Raksha Stall. Just a few miles away from the sacred Mount Kailash lies its terrifying dark mirror, a massive body of water known as Raksha Stall, or the Lake of Demons. While surrounding lakes are worshipped for their purity and teeming with aquatic life, Raksha Stall is completely dead. It contains absolutely zero fish, zero plant life, and local monks strictly forbid anyone from touching the violently toxic, highly saline black water. In Tibetan cosmology, this lake is the literal physical manifestation of chaotic, demonic energy bleeding into our dimension. The shoreline is completely devoid of any natural sounds. There are no birds, no insects, just a suffocating, unnatural silence. Satellite imagery shows that the lake is bizarrely shaped exactly like a crescent moon, a symbol of darkness and the underworld in ancient esoteric texts. Travelers who camp too close to its shores report violently disturbing night terrors, sleep paralysis, and the sensation of being physically suffocated by an invisible pressure. The monks believe that Raksha Stall serves as a massive geological containment field, trapping ancient malevolent forces beneath billions of gallons of dead water. But if the water acts as a prison for demonic entities, what happens when human beings actively invite those same demons into their own minds?
Only 1% of people know the dark truth behind what we are about to show you next. If you want to be part of the few who actually know what's happening in the world, subscribe and leave a like right now. Done? Look at this.
Number 11. Chode. To completely annihilate the human ego, elite esoteric practitioners do not sit in peaceful temples. They walk alone into known active graveyards in the absolute dead of night. They perform Chode, a terrifying psychological ritual that translates to cutting through. The monk sits among the decomposing corpses, surrounded by total darkness, and uses advanced meditation to actively summon the most violent, malevolent spirits in the surrounding landscape. They do not fight these demons.
Instead, the monk mentally slices open their own body and vividly visualizes feeding their own bleeding flesh and crushing their own bones to satisfy the starving entities. It is the ultimate psychological horror survival test. Imagine willingly plugging your brain into a virtual reality simulation where you feel yourself being eaten alive just to prove to your nervous system that fear is an illusion. If the monk's concentration breaks during this intensely vivid hallucination, the ancient texts warn of immediate, irreversible madness. It is a calculated, controlled descent into complete schizophrenia, designed to violently sever the practitioner's attachment to their physical form. By surviving the absolute darkest corners of their own localized terror, they prepare for the ultimate journey.
Number 10. Daylog. While the Chode ritual simulates death, some monks take it to the literal biological extreme. They are known as the Daylog, which strictly translates to those who return from the afterlife. These are individuals who intentionally trigger a state of deep clinical death. Their breathing completely stops, their skin turns freezing cold, and their pulse is entirely undetectable for days, sometimes even an entire week. But their consciousness does not fade into the void. It violently ejects from the body to aggressively map the terrifying, chaotic dimensions of the underworld. They act as astral cartographers, navigating the localized hellscapes, interacting with demonic judges, and speaking to the dead. Then, inexplicably, their dormant biological engine forcefully reboots. They wake up, violently gasping for air in their frozen bodies, to document exactly what they saw. It is exactly like sending a highly trained operative behind enemy lines with no radio, hoping they survive long enough to bring the intel back to base. Modern cardiologists have absolutely no medical explanation for how a human heart can completely stop for nearly 100 hours without the brain melting into useless mush. How do they manipulate their biology to survive these lethal extremes?
Number 9. Tumo. To survive temperatures that instantly freeze human blood, the elite monks have successfully hot-wired their own biological core. They use an incredibly dangerous neurological hack known as Tumo, the fire meditation. By hyperventilating the lower abdomen and fiercely visualizing a blazing fireball directly inside their spine, they force their dormant brown adipose tissue to violently ignite. This is not a slight temperature raise. It is a massive, aggressive thermal explosion. Harvard scientists attached thermal cameras to these monks and watched in absolute horror as their internal temperatures spiked to lethal fever levels while sitting completely naked in the -20-degree snow. They draped soaking wet, freezing blankets over the monk's shoulders, a guaranteed death sentence for a normal human. Within minutes, the blankets violently steamed and bone-dried. It is the biological equivalent of pouring high-octane gasoline onto a dying engine, forcing the human body to become a literal walking furnace. If the monk loses concentration for a single microsecond, the intense cold will instantly crash their system, resulting in immediate cardiac arrest. This proves that human consciousness can aggressively rewrite involuntary biological programming. But what happens when that heat is pushed to the absolute maximum limit?
Number 8. Milarepa. High up in the freezing cliffs of the Himalayas, there are isolated meditation caves that contain evidence of a biological heat so extreme it melted solid geology. These are the caves of Milarepa, a legendary 11th century sorcerer turned enlightened master. According to the strictly guarded historical records, Milarepa mastered the Tumo fire meditation to such an impossible degree that his localized body heat defied the laws of thermodynamics. Inside his completely dark, freezing stone cells, you can still find literal handprints and footprints violently pressed deep into the solid granite walls. This was not carved with metal chisels. The rock was instantly liquefied by the sheer thermal radiation emitting from his flesh. Imagine a human being vibrating with so much internal microwave energy that they can push their bare hand into solid rock like it is warm butter. Geologists and skeptics who have physically examined the caves are completely terrified by the smooth, glass-like texture of the indentations, which indicates flash melting rather than slow carving. It proves that the human body, when completely unlocked, operates like a walking nuclear reactor. But if monks can manipulate heat, can they also manipulate the lethal weather of the mountains?
Number 7. Nagpa. Not all masters wear peaceful red robes and live quietly inside massive monasteries. Enter the Nagpa, a terrifying, highly aggressive class of rogue sorcerers who live deep in the wilderness and weaponize the elements. They are easily recognized by their long, completely unkempt matted hair and dark striped shawls. Unlike standard monks, the Nagpa do not take vows of celibacy or peace. They are the ancient Black Ops division of Tibetan mysticism. Local villages desperately hire them to perform a very specific, highly dangerous task, violently altering localized weather systems. Using extreme tantric rituals, sonic vibrations, and deep psychic focus, they allegedly shatter massive hailstorms before they can destroy crop yields, or aggressively summon violent lightning strikes against rival factions. Think of them as localized human harp machines, using sheer mental frequency to violently disrupt the barometric pressure in the atmosphere. The established monastic institutions heavily respect but deeply fear the Nagpa, viewing them as dangerously unpredictable wildcards. Their power proves that the boundary between human intention and atmospheric physics is completely porous. But what happens when this dark, localized magic is turned against an entire civilization?
Number 6. Guj. Deep in the desolate badlands of western Tibet lie the towering, eroded sandcastles of Guj, a massive, highly advanced kingdom that literally vanished overnight. In the 10th century, Guj was a booming, wealthy empire that controlled the entire Himalayan gold trade, populated by thousands of monks living in vast, complex cave systems carved directly into the sheer cliff walls. And then, absolutely everyone disappeared. No mass graves were ever found, no signs of catastrophic warfare, and no historical records explaining the sudden exodus. It is the ultimate cold case of the ancient world. The empty caves are still perfectly painted with terrifying, highly detailed murals of decapitated demons and cosmic maps frozen perfectly in time. Imagine walking into a massive, bustling metropolis where all the cars are running and the coffee is hot, but every single human being has been abruptly deleted from existence. Local nomads absolutely refuse to go near the ruins after dark, claiming the valley is entirely contaminated by a localized curse triggered by dark tantric magic that wiped the kingdom off the grid. What exactly were the monks of Guj practicing in those dark tunnels that erased their entire civilization?
Number 5. Rupkund. The Himalayas do not just erase entire kingdoms, they also serve as a massive frozen graveyard for catastrophic anomalies. High in an incredibly remote, frozen valley sits Rupkund, locally known as Skeleton Lake. When the glacial ice violently melts for 1 month every year, the crystal-clear water reveals the horrifying remains of over 800 human skeletons scattered across the lakebed. For decades, scientists assumed they were an army wiped out by an avalanche. But when modern forensic teams violently cracked open the skulls to extract DNA, they found a terrifying paradox. These people did not die from war, and they did not die in the same century. They were killed hundreds of years apart, yet they all suffered the exact same localized violent trauma, massive blunt force strikes to the top of the skull. The current working theory is that these pilgrims were repeatedly slaughtered by localized, hyper-aggressive storms, dropping hail the size of bowling balls. But the monks whisper a much darker truth. Rup Kund is a cursed, energetic dead zone, a geographical trap that actively summons atmospheric violence to crush anyone who dares to cross its forbidden boundary. What other lethal secrets are buried in the deep earth?
Number 4. Potala. Towering over the city of Lhasa is the Potala Palace, a massive, intimidating fortress with over 1,000 rooms, historically serving as the absolute seat of Tibetan power. But the true secret of the Potala is not the gold roofs or the giant Buddha statues. It is the terrifying sealed labyrinth buried deep beneath its stone foundations. Below the public areas lies a highly classified network of subterranean tunnels, dungeons, and hidden vaults that hold the darkest physical secrets of the empire. This includes the Cave of the Scorpion, an ancient, lightless prison where political enemies and rogue sorcerers were dropped into a pit filled with venomous scorpions to be slowly devoured alive. It also houses sealed archives containing highly dangerous esoteric texts that are considered too psychologically destructive for human eyes. Think of the underground Potala as the Vatican's secret archives mixed with a highly lethal military black site. Only a handful of elite guards have ever seen the absolute bottom levels of this architectural nightmare, and the Chinese government keeps the lowest access points permanently welded shut. What exactly is sealed in the deepest chamber of the rock?
Number 3. Jalus. While physical bodies rot in underground dungeons, the absolute most elite masters ensure their bodies leave absolutely zero trace on this planet. This terrifying phenomenon is known as Jalus, or the rainbow body. According to the deepest Dzogchen teachings, a master who achieves flawless enlightenment does not die. They violently alter their own atomic structure. At the exact moment of physical death, their completely purified consciousness causes the very atoms of their flesh to vibrate at an infinitely higher frequency. Over the course of exactly 7 days, the heavy material elements of bone, blood, and tissue undergo a radical atomic transmutation, literally dissolving backward into pure, blinding light. In the most successful cases, absolutely nothing is left behind except the master's hair and fingernails, which are considered dead impurities. Skeptics desperately argue that the bodies are simply being secretly cremated. But over 160 extremely detailed, independent historical accounts of the rainbow body have been documented. It functions as the ultimate proof that matter and mind are the exact same thing. If you master your mind completely, your physical flesh simply ceases to exist. But there is one state even more terrifying to modern medicine.
Number 2. Tukdam. The ultimate, most terrifying biological secret of the Tibetan plateau is a state that completely shatters the medical definition of death. It is called Tukdam. When the most highly advanced masters stop breathing, their hearts violently stop, and their brainwaves completely flatline to absolute zero. Clinically, they are a rotting corpse, but their bodies absolutely refuse to decompose. For weeks, and sometimes for entirely full months, the dead monk remains sitting perfectly upright in deep meditation. The flesh does not rot, the skin does not discolor, and the immediate chest area remains inexplicably violently warm to the touch. Modern neuroscientists are currently rushing into the Himalayas with extremely sensitive scanners, desperately trying to measure what is keeping these impossible corpses preserved. The monks calmly explain that the master is simply resting in the deepest foundational layer of universal consciousness, holding the door between life and death open with sheer, terrifying willpower. Imagine a computer that is completely unplugged from the wall, yet the screen is still brightly glowing. They prove that death is not an abrupt cliff,
but a highly controlled doorway. Where does the consciousness actually go while the body sits frozen in time?
Number 1. Shambhala. The absolute greatest, most intensely guarded secret of the Tibetan monks is not a biological hack, but a massive, multi-dimensional gateway. It is the legend of Shambhala. This is not a metaphorical state of mind. Ancient texts explicitly describe it as a highly advanced, hidden civilization physically located in the deepest, uncharted sectors of the Himalayas. It is actively protected by a massive psychic distortion field that completely blinds modern satellites and violently disorients anyone trying to approach it. Inside Shambhala, technology and spirituality have merged perfectly, creating a society free of death, disease, and war. The texts prophesize that when the outside world completely collapses into a massive apocalyptic nuclear world war, the armies of Shambhala will violently tear open the dimensional veil and ride out with advanced weaponry to annihilate the dark forces and hit the reset button on planet Earth. Imagine a futuristic breakaway civilization hiding out in a parallel dimension, quietly watching humanity destroy itself while waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Hitler searched for it. The KGB sent spies to find it. But the monks violently guard the coordinates, knowing that if modern humanity found the gate, they would only weaponize the apocalypse.
If you thought this was terrifying, you are not ready for what they found in the video on your screen. Click it right now. The truth is worse than you think.